So that's what it has to be. You have to let them know that there's a total package when it comes down to policing now. It's not just guns and badges and nice cars and riding around with the shades on and listening to the radio and that. No, it's a profession of service, and you have to be willing to provide service. And if that doesn't fit with what you're looking for, then you need to look at something else.
Brothers and sisters, brothers and sisters, I don't know what this world is coming to.
You're listening to the Black and Blue Podcast, a discussion and celebration of the roles of African Americans and other minorities in U.S. law enforcement. Your host on the Black and Blue Podcast is Dale Peters, a law enforcement professional with over 20 years experience in the business. Hop on board this Black and Blue train of interviews, current events, and pop culture conversations. So get ready. The Black and Blue Podcast is coming at you right now. What up, Square Pegs? Welcome back to the latest episode of the Black and Blue Podcast. My name is Dale. I'm the host. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. I truly appreciate it. I call myself and all you guys out there that support the show Square Pegs because, that's just what we are. That puzzle piece that traditionally just didn't fit, but we made it fit through a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. That goes for any walk of life, but particularly minorities in law enforcement because, that's what this show's about. So, again, I appreciate you and the support for the show. And if you want to continue supporting the show, please like and subscribe to the Black and Blue Podcast YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. And click that bell icon on the YouTube channel so you can get notified whenever I drop new content. Check out the social media pages. We're everywhere at Black and Blue US. And, of course, the website at blackandblue.us. Okay, so let me introduce today's guest. He's a deputy chief of the Prince George's County, Maryland Police Department. Everyone, please help me welcome in Deputy Chief George Nichols. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Bill?
Excellent. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Pleasure to be here.
All right. Well, morning for me out here on the West Coast. It's now morning for you out there on the East Coast. How's your day shaping up so far?
So far, so good, knocking on a little bit of wood here,
Yeah, no doubt. Appreciate you. So I mentioned that you are a deputy chief with the Prince George's County, Maryland Police Department. For everybody that does not know where that is, please inform us.
Okay, so we are known as the District of Columbia suburbs. We border Washington, D.C., and we sit in between them and Montgomery County, and also to the west you have Virginia. So we sit right there in that tri-state area of D.C., Maryland, Virginia, DMV. Okay,
got you. And so it's county police department. I always find that interesting because we don't have much of that out here on the West Coast. County police departments, we have county sheriff's offices. What's the distinction? Well, is there a county sheriff out in Maryland? In Prince George's County?
Yes, there is. And but the duties are different. Whereas the Prince George's County Police Department is the primary law enforcement agency for Prince George's County. The Sheriff's Department is the ones that actually serve all the civil process and court documentation and things like that. So they handle civil and those type of obligations, whereas we take care of primary law enforcement. They do have arrest powers and everything else as well, but we do have both entities.
Oh, okay, yeah. At least out here, and I'm sure a lot of the down in the South, Sheriff's Department, the sheriff is elected. And whereas the chief of police is not elected, he's hired by whatever city or county, what have you. But they out here in California, they do patrol as well in county areas. In cities that don't want to make have their own police department, they contract out with sheriff's departments to do their law enforcement. So a little distinction there, a little difference there. Cool. So how long you been with Prince George's County?
I've been with the Prince George's County Police Department now for 23 years.
Wow, 23 years. All right. And so you've risen through the ranks right now you're a deputy chief. What is your what do your duties entail there as a deputy chief?
Well, as a deputy chief, I'm in charge of, there's four of us. I have the Bureau of Patrol, which is the largest operational component in the department. So we have a department of approximately 1,700, both sworn and civilians. I oversee the Bureau of Patrol, which encompasses about 1,000 of those personnel, 850 sworn law enforcement officers and about 150 civilian personnel.
Nice, nice. And how long have you been a deputy chief?
I've been a deputy chief now for 5 years. I was promoted to deputy chief January of 2016.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
What's the next step? What's the next rank in your progression over there?
Well, that's basically where it would be now. Anything else after that, of course, which that was appointed, but chief of police, but that's also appointed by the county executive and then approved by the county council. So right now, unless I decide to actually become chief of police for the department, that would be the next step.
Okay, yeah. So you guys are under the chief. So there's
That's correct.
Got you. Okay, deputy chief. So no assistant chief and all that. Got you.
Well, there is. So the structure is it's the chief, there's the assistant, and then you would have me as three, and then you have three other deputy chiefs. You have a Bureau of Investigations, a Bureau of Administration, Homeland Security, and then the Bureau of Forensic Science and Intelligence, which is the bureau that I first started in 5 years ago when I was first promoted.
Yeah, I mean, you guys definitely need that out. I mean, we all need it out here in Cali and everywhere, but definitely in the D.C. tri-state area, you definitely need that Homeland Security Bureau because everything that's been going down, since 9/11, right?
Absolutely.
All right. What other sort of assignments have you done in your career?
Let's see. Of course, I started off in patrol, everybody does. About 3 years of that, I became an investigator. I investigated robberies, assaults, burglaries, thefts, sexual offenses. I then got promoted to the rank of sergeant. Was a patrol sergeant for a little while. Then I went back into investigations. I was a gang unit sergeant. I investigated gang activity. Went to the Internal Affairs Special Investigative Response Team, investigating criminal misconduct, involving officers. Then was assigned to the Training Academy where I went back there and I was a sergeant there. I was promoted to lieutenant and I oversaw the homicide unit. I was the commander of the homicide for the department. I was promoted to captain and I stayed in homicide, but I became the assistant commander of the criminal investigations division. So I oversaw homicide, robbery, sexual assaults. Then got moved over to what they call a district station in patrol. I was the assistant commander there for a short period of time. Then actually got promoted to the rank of major and took over a patrol district station, which is in Palmer Park, where is actually the home of FedEx Field, where the Washington football team plays.
Okay.
I was there for about 2.5 years, and then got promoted to the rank of deputy chief, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. Rest is history.
I
noticed you knew that distinction of what to call the Washington football team as opposed to their old name. So props on that.
Well, I'm a born and raised New Yorker, so I'm a diehard Giants fan. Now I can't let my wife say that because she's a diehard Washington football team's fan. So.
So how's that dynamic in that household when they play?
It works very well. I get to stay in the basement and watch it by myself.
There you go. Yeah. That's kind of like the dynamic out here. For a while, there was no pro football, but now we got two pro teams, but USC and UCLA. So, that's the big rivalry out here. So whenever, they play, households divided and all that. So definitely. Cool. So out in Prince George's County, what's the demographic makeup of that county? Is it mostly diverse? What's the demographic makeup?
It's diverse. However, it is the most affluent African American community in the nation. So it's a lot of it's one where African Americans are out here, and I mean affluent. You have NASA out here in Greenbelt, Maryland. Of course, you have the District of Columbia, which houses Congress and Senate. and everything. So you have all of these people who are, basically tenured and successful that live here in Prince George's County. And it's still a suburban and rural area. So you have farmland out here, but you also have $1 million homes. You have homes on the waterfront on the Potomac. You have a myriad of things here.
Yeah, yeah. I noticed when you said that one of the most affluent populations of African Americans out there even surpassed Atlanta, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, because I know Atlanta had that distinction for a long time. So, all right, that's nice. I'll have to get out there and visit one of these days. Maybe
Absolutely.
I drove through there because I got family in D.C. I got family in somewhere in Maryland. They were. I forgot where that was, but I'm gonna have to drive through there one of these days and check it out. I love D.C. I love going through there and all the history and all that. So that's good stuff. Yeah. How often do you ever get to do any of those tours? At the Capitol, the White House, any of that sort of stuff?
Well, unfortunately, the last tour that I got to do at the Capitol, I was down there for the January 6th insurrection.
Yes.
So I was
Yeah,
down there for that.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Had a lot of allied response for that, huh? A lot of allied response for that.
absolutely.
Yeah. How was that experience? I mean, everything that we see from afar on the news, was it as chaotic as the news put it out to be?
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
It was.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, it was.
We had an officer at the Capitol Police that lost his life during that insurrection, and yeah, it was a lot of craziness. So, whatever side of the fence you lie on politically, we all got to know that's not acceptable. That's not what we're about here in the U.S. And everyone that participated in that needs to be held accountable. So, looks like they're doing so. They're catching those people one by one. So, glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. All right. So you said it's pretty diverse out there in Prince George's County. Is that where you're originally from? You said you're
No,
from
no,
New York.
no. Yeah,
Yeah.
originally
What
from
brought
Brooklyn,
you?
New York.
What brought you down to Prince George's County?
So I served in the United States Marine Corps for 8 years. Upon
Thank you for your
graduating from high
service.
school. Thank you. Appreciate it. Was glad to serve. Served in Desert Storm, Desert Shield. I got out of the Marines and I had actually applied. I'd always wanted to be in law enforcement, and I actually applied to NYPD back at home. For anybody who's ever gone through that process or familiar, NYPD has a process where they have a long waiting list. Uh, my ex-wife, her sister, and her husband lived in a place called Fort Washington, which is here in Prince George's County, and they were like, "Hey, Prince George's County is hiring." And I said, "Okay." I was actually stationed in a place called Patuxent River, Maryland at the time, which is a naval air station. So I applied and got accepted, and I separated from the Marine Corps in December 1997 and went right into the academy 2 weeks later.
All right. So you said you had always wanted to be in law enforcement, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. All right. What's your story there? Did you just kind of like see, on TV, the cops and robbers shows, or did you have someone in law enforcement that kind of inspired you? What's your story there?
So I did. So the inspiration that I had, my godfather was a detective with NYPD. And he used to come by the house and he would tell stories of police work and policing. But it wasn't so much the detective work that he would always talk about that was intriguing. It was actually, prior to making detective, the work that he did on the streets. In New York City, I mean, you had a lot of officers that walked foot beats and foot posts.
Yep.
He would always talk about the relationships that he made with people during those times and everything. And I was always one that, if you can make a difference or, a positive difference every day, that's something that shows a success. It's like this old adage that I've always followed, that if you get out of bed in the morning, if you make your bed, if you don't accomplish anything else the rest of the day, you did make your bed, you accomplished something. So it always seemed like that work in policing and what he would always talk about was something that was rewarding on not just your end, but on the end of someone else that you served. So.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. And then, so while you were in New York, did You ever get to go on any ride-alongs or visit the police station or anything like that to kind of spurred you on a little bit further?
I did. I did. I actually did. I did one or two ride-alongs, and then I visited several stations, and then I actually had wanted to become one of the auxiliary police officers, but then, upon the time of graduating, I decided to go on and join the military. So I didn't go into the auxiliary police force, which, could have been a segue right into the job, but I wanted to join the Marine Corps and serve.
Yes, yes. And what'd you do in the military?
So in the military, I was what you call I was a field artilleryman. I was in field artillery, so I was in a combat support. I was in a combat element in regards to the occupational specialty.
Yeah. So you saw combat time, obviously, during that time. What was that experience like for you?
Actually, it wasn't as bad as one would think. Where I know some people have actually had experienced some real traumatic experiences with it because they were engaged in battle. If you
Yeah.
go back in time and you look at Desert Storm, Desert Shield, the air components had done such a great job of disorienting those Iraqi forces that they were just willing to surrender. So we didn't really get to do a whole lot of skirmishes and firefights. We did more escorting of prisoners and just getting people to safety. It was more like humanitarian more so than combat.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's good work as well. Obviously, spreading the goodwill throughout those impoverished areas and war torn areas and all that. So that helps, and we're still there a little bit, pulling out a little bit here and there, but that's needed. Definitely needed work. So again, I appreciate you for your service.
Thank you.
So what about your department? You said that Prince George's County is pretty diverse. How about your department as well?
The department's very diverse. We still, unfortunately, after the events of last year, recruitment unfortunately has taken a dramatic toll in the negative area, and that's on especially as it relates to our people, minorities. They feel as though it's in a different light where this is now a profession or an occupation where it requires you to what's the word I'm looking for? Well, it requires you to not really provide services to people, and then because of the way that they have seen our people being treated, they don't want to be a part of something that's a cult. They don't want to be a part of something they
Right.
consider a culture that's shunned out people, so to speak.
Exactly. And again, that's partly why I wanted to do this show, to show, in recruitment that, you don't have to be, a part of that negative culture, because we're not all that way. 99.9% of law enforcement officers are out there just trying to do the right thing and do their job and go home and not hurt anybody. But, they need to see that. They need to see faces like you and I and hear some of these stories. So that was my motivation for doing this show. So even if you didn't want to be a police officer after seeing this show, at least you can kind of bridge the gap, with law enforcement and understand and have that mutual respect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So you brought up the George Floyd incident. How did that affect you personally, and then how did that affect your community down there?
Personally, I thought it was a very dark day in history. But I use this analogy, and I tell people that 2020 was one of the most challenging and tumultuous years we had. But you have to relate 2020 to sight, because they say 2020 is perfect sight. So in 2020, eyes were opened. We saw things that people maybe want to turn a blind eye to, or didn't think was happening, or said, well, it's really not as bad as people make it out to be. And they saw firsthand on national TV that the complaints of people and what they had believed and said was happening, they saw firsthand. So I'll just say that being in this profession and seeing what I saw in there, it was a travesty. I was disgusted. I was angry, and it wasn't even so. And it was not only the fact of what I saw that person do? It was the fact that there were others that swore to uphold and protect that did
Yes.
nothing to
Yes.
prohibit it and prevent it. That was even worse.
Yeah. Yeah. We hear the story of the one of them being a rookie, is either on the FTO program or just got off, and how's he going to be able to tell more senior officers to stop doing what they're doing? It's I know it would be tough, but you got to do what you got to do and make sure that whoever was in our custody is safe. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're there to do: protect lives and property. So it may be tough, but you got to do what you got to do. So I guess maybe easier for me to say and easy for you to say. Over 20 years, both of us in the business. Hopefully we would have acted appropriately with a year or less than a year on. But that's what we should do. That's what we should all aspire to do.
Well, to put it very simply, it's simplistic. When you raise your hand at your graduation ceremony and you're taking the oath, you take the oath to protect and serve.
Yes.
And regardless of the fact I'm a deputy chief and the lowest ranking officer out there sees me doing something inappropriate, wrong, or illegal, they have an obligation to stop me, because if they're there and they do nothing, they're culpable. They're just as guilty as I am.
Exactly.
So I always look at it from that way. I'm not going to be guilty of something that you did, knowing I had the right and the obligation to stop it.
Yeah, yeah. On the flip side, though, playing devil's advocate, say that one of the officers did step in, right, and they stopped, that officer from doing what he was doing to, ultimately kill George Floyd. So they stop him, and then now George Floyd is not dead. How does that play out later on as far as IAs and all that? Because, there's no proof that anything was happening. George Floyd isn't dead. You know what I mean? How can you stop another officer? I had this under control. I wasn't going to kill him. That's what, the officer could say as a defense. But, you stopped him. Just playing devil's advocate there.
Well, and I appreciate that. But the thing that you have to look at is tactic. Like in our Prince George's County, in our general orders, there are certain tactics and certain measures that you use.
Yes.
We don't put knees in people's backs and in their necks. So that's an improper procedure. So you have a right to stop them. I wasn't going to kill him. It doesn't matter. It's an improper procedure. You can't do it.
Yeah.
A chokehold. We don't do chokehold. So if you've got somebody in a chokehold, no, you can't do that. You have to stop it. You're morally obligated to stop it. And here's the thing. Regardless of the fact if I wasn't going to kill him or not, you used an improper technique or an improper tactic, and it was recorded and on national TV. So even having spent some time in internal affairs and having that visible proof, that audio and visual proof, I would have had no other choice but to charge the officer with at least improper technique and tactic.
No doubt, no doubt. I'm saying, at least for my department and your department, the knee in the thing is not acceptable. It's not part of policy. I don't know if it's true, but I had heard that was part of their training over there, that they could do so. So if that is the case, it'd be kind of hard pressed to stop somebody from doing that if that's what they're trained to do. It's kind of dumb. Kind of a dumb thing to have in your training, but nonetheless, if it was in their manual and they are trained to do so, then it's kind of tough to stop somebody from doing what they're trained to do.
And that was the point. That's why I said if it's an improper technique or tactic and it's not taught, then by all means you have every right to stop it. If it was taught, and this is why we review and do legal updates and everything biannually, because you have to look at what's best practices.
Yes.
And we all know that we talk about if you're playing with children and they're on their stomach and you tickle them so much, you can't be on them, because the chest compressions to get you to rise and fall with the appropriate level is restricted because they're on their stomach. That's what leads to those breathing issues and can cause death, because you're not getting the appropriate amount of oxygen into the body. So you're right; those are the things that they have to look at. And if that was a tactic that was approved, which, like I said, here in Prince George's County, we don't utilize that, and I can speak to that. So I can tell you right now, if I saw that in this Prince George's County, we'd have a serious problem.
No, exactly. So, moving on, another thing that hit hard in 2020. You know, first of all, let me just stick with that. You know, in the wake of George Floyd and then also Breonna Taylor, there were a bunch of protests that ensued because of that. How was Prince George's County affected with protest, if at all?
We had the protests. We had the very respectful and civil marches. We spoke with the organizers and leaders, and we understood their positions and what they were asking for. And we all know that people protest because they feel as though that's the last resort.
Right.
They've talked, they've tried, and now they have to lash out. But there wasn't any destruction. They were all peaceful. They all did it in a place where it would have meaning, whether it was down in what we call Upper Marlboro, where our county government is, and everything. But they assembled peacefully. They had their conversations. We had conversations with them, and their idea and their goals was to make sure that they had better treatment, fair and equitable treatment, for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, like I said, you also have all the allied responses down in D.C. At the Capitol. Did you have to send manpower down there as well to kind of help out with anything that was happening down there as well?
We did. In fact, I have the Special Operations Division under me as well, which is like SWAT teams and emergency services teams and all that. So we had them on standby. We took what we call our civil disturbance unit down there. It was about 80 officers. I went down, and we assisted. We were able to bring about order in conjunction with the U.S. Capitol Police and, of course, Metropolitan Police Department. We all were able to bring about peace and order again. But yeah, we did have an active role of actually being online with them shoulder to shoulder and helping to
Yeah.
remove people from the Capitol.
Yeah, I love how it seems like you guys work really well out there in the tri-state area, and you have to because it's continual. You're always working on these sorts of things together. So you guys train together, I'm sure, a lot and do lots of operations together. Not so much, where I'm at. Most agencies are self-contained, and if we need help, we put out the call, and then but the next officer from the next department may not necessarily know what I'm going to do because we don't necessarily train. Hopefully, all the training is the same, but not necessarily so. So it's good to see that out there in the tri-state area over there. Yeah. So moving on was another thing that happened in 2020 was COVID, and it's still happening. A lot of things are still closed, but hopefully we can get some reopenings. How did COVID affect you personally, and then how did it affect your community?
Well, thank God, and my wife is also on the police department as well. So
Okay.
we're both vaccinated, now. So we got both doses as first responders. So personally, and thank God again, knocking on a little wood here, we didn't get the virus, and my daughter who resides with us didn't get the virus. As it relates to police work, we did have to change our structure. We had to stand up we always have what we call a telephone reporting unit, and those are officers that are assigned to take calls over the phone, which are nonviolent calls. If it's a theft that doesn't require somebody to come out and process, not a burglary, but where an officer's response isn't needed, we'd have those officers assigning. But we did, in the course of this pandemic, we did increase the personnel of that unit to assist in taking more calls to service and things like that. Unfortunately, we had to suspend the ride-along programs, which was one of the things that we used to continue to introduce our citizens to the law enforcement experience and to maintain those relationships and partnerships with them. So we had to, suspend those and community policing, the Citizens Police Academy, the Young Adults Police Academy, things that we always use to interact, in person. Unfortunately, we had to suspend. However, we have since gone back to those platforms, minus the ride along, but the meetings and everything else, we have to use the Zoom and Teams platforms. So we're still able to now maintain relationships. Unfortunately, we just have to do it virtually. And that's why I don't use the term social distancing. I'll always use the term physical distancing with social people. I mean, we know that.
Yes.
I mean, the humans need social interaction. People have been known to pass away because of lack of social activity. So we have to remain social, but unfortunately, physically, we have to do it. So I always say physical distance, not socially distance. So.
And that's tough. Are the schools reopening out there in the area, in your area?
So they planning to reopen schools on April 8th. And because like the school resource officers and the crossing guards fall within my purview, we're now working on what that's going to look like for the reopening of schools, the vaccinations, the personnel, which schools may open, which are going to open for full time, full day, which may open half a day. Those are the items that we haven't nailed down completely yet, but these are the things that we are discussing at this moment.
Right. And I mentioned that because you mentioned that we're social people, so it's physical distance, and a lot of that is manifesting in our kids that are doing this distance learning, and they're not seeing their friends and all that physically. They may see them on Zooms and Instagrams and all that, but they're not physically in school interacting with their peers. They're not at lunchtime where they can just talk, and a lot of them aren't even doing sports anymore. And that's manifesting in a lot of depression in these kids now, and issues with their learning. Kids that used to get good grades in school now, aren't even logging on. So those are things that we need to work out sooner rather than later, because we got these kids that lost a year or two. Sometimes if it doesn't stop any time soon, maybe even 3 years of their education.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah. So, I was joking with somebody about, because my son just started college, so he's a freshman, and he wants to get into the medical field, and
Nice.
So doctors right now that are graduating, I would assume that they're doing in medical school, they're doing distance learning too. I don't know how that works out. So like. If you're going to be looking for a doctor in the future, when you look up their credentials, you say, when did you graduate? Was that the time during COVID? Did you get your degree on YouTube? So,
Right.
yeah. So I'll pass. I'll get somebody that graduated in, early 2000s. So that's going to be, that's a bad thing. So hopefully we can get through this sooner rather than later. So you mentioned you got a family over there. What do you guys like to do when you're not working?
So like the wife and I, because we're pretty much for the most part we're empty nesters now. So
Okay.
She and our thing is we just we'll spend our time together. She also has her own. We make sure we have our own things to do as well, so we don't crowd each other. Like her thing is, my wife does. She bakes and she does extraordinary work. So she's baking and doing those things, and as it relates to
what
me,
sort of things does she bake? Like sweets or everything, huh?
Yeah, sweets and all, everything. I'm glad I don't like sweets like that. I'm probably about 400 pounds right now.
But you like bread though. I'm sure she gets down with breads and rolls and biscuits and all that, right?
She does, yeah, and actually, yeah, but in moderation. You gotta be careful with that too, because then that'll get on you too. But
yep.
My things is I like to read, and when the weather breaks and all that, I go fishing and stuff like that. So those are my hobbies, and I actually, since the pandemic, I've gotten into like cooking. Not that I was a bad cook anyway, but now I'm looking at like really expanding. I'm trying to go into more cultural dishes. So I'm looking at some of the things like Italian, like genuine Italian dishes and stuff. So that's like another one of my hobbies now. Is I'll look at the recipes and I'll try to do them. So
nice. So if you get better than that, we can start calling you deputy chef.
Deputy Chef, there you go.
Deputy Chef George Nichols.
That's right.
Yeah, get that going. I worked a case years ago with a guy from another department. He had a cooking show. He was a detective. He had a cooking show. He's pretty big on Facebook. He'd been on the Food Network and all that. And his name was the Culinary Detective.
Mm.
Yeah, so he would go around and do food tastings at restaurants and all that sort of thing. So when he retired, I think he went and did that full time. So shout out to him. So gotta have hobbies. Gotta have hobbies.
You have to.
Because that's the thing in our profession. When you hear a lot of people that after they retire, 5 years after they croak because this was their life. They had nothing outside of that, and they didn't know how to deal with the stress while they were on the job.
Yeah, and actually, my other thing too is, I lift weights, anywhere between, 4 or 5 times a week, and I still get my cardio in. That you have to maintain that shape because you're right, the stress will manifest itself, and you don't even realize it. You're getting headaches, and you start putting on this weight around the midsection, and you don't understand it, and it's that stress weight. So you have to, like you said, you have to take care of that, and especially again, we're talking about our demographic. It affects us more so than anything.
Yeah. I interviewed somebody from Baltimore County, from Baltimore PD a while ago, Vernon Heron. I don't know if you know him or not, but
I know Vernon very well.
Yes. So he's the director of wellness over there. Does your department have any sort of program where you're looking after officers' mental health and physical health?
Yes. So we of course have a very robust mental and physical program. In fact, officers have to provide certification each and every year that they are physically capable of continuing to do the job. If they don't provide that, they are immediately placed on an administrative posture until they get that done, and a doctor signs off on that. As it relates to psychological, that's one that I would like to see us also have them provide a certification. Not talking about what it is they discuss, we can't do that, but just to say, hey, I saw my therapist or whatever, and the therapist is, says here, based on conversations I had, they're still psychologically capable and mentally stable to do the job, and those are the things that we need. And I'm telling you, this is something that I believe, if not most departments, all departments are going to end up going to at some point, because the mental strength of an individual is just as, and in some cases more important than the physical strength is.
Absolutely, because we take that stress home to either our loved ones or if we have nobody at home, just to ourselves, and it eats you up inside. So you got to be able to release that, whether physically through working out or actually talking about things, the things that we see on this job. So it's a double-edged sword, because I like this job. I got into this job because of the variety of things that you see. It's not the same thing every day, but those things that you see can eat at you as well. So,
absolutely,
yeah. So, your progression through the ranks at Prince George's County. Did you have any mentors that kind of ushered you along the way?
Oh, absolutely. Some of the mentors I had on the department, the first mentor I had was the first sergeant I had when I went to the investigative section, Sergeant Hampton Johnson. His nickname was Boogie, and he was like my dad on the department. We actually favored. People thought I was actually his son that he had brought on. So he was my mentor, and he would always tell me, he would say, son, I need you to do better than me. And when you look at a guy who came on in the early 80s, and he had actually started in the late 70s, because he had started with Metro Transit Police Department first, and then switched over to our department. And he would talk about how back in those days, you didn't see too many of us make it past certain ranks, sergeants, and things like that. So, of course, his thing was he was like, you're going to do better than me. So he was definitely my first mentor on the department. After him, I had a commander by the name of Archie O'Neill, who has retired, but he is now the director of our school security. And I still keep in touch with him as well. He was another one that said the same thing. They see the potential. Don't stop here. Keep going. I studied and got promoted. But one of my biggest ones, he's also a retired deputy chief from our department, and he's the deputy director of our our inspections and permitting enforcement bureau now. His name is Gary Cunningham, who he was really instrumental in me getting promoted up to the executive level. In fact, when I was getting promoted to lieutenant, he's the one who put me in homicide as the commander, and then forward. So I had some very good mentors, and all three, of course, were black males who took me under the wing, what me along.
Nice. And then not to say that you didn't have any Caucasian or other mentors along the way as well. I'm sure you did.
Oh yeah, I will tell you one of the best commanders that I'd ever worked for when I was in homicide and then became the assistant commander of the criminal investigation division was a guy by the name of Michael Strawn, who was my major when I first came over there. And the one thing I got from him was he was an even keel leader. He wanted you to make the decision. He didn't want you to bring it to him for him to solve.
Right.
If there was a problem, I could tell him I had the problem, but I had to say, but here's the solution to the situation. And he would allow you to work that out. And he could navigate his way through a lot of things, which is something I try to pick up. Is like, if you give me an issue, I try to think of 3 or 4 ways that I could tackle it. That was him. So no, he was instrumental also in my leadership style.
Sounds like he was reading. Sounds like he was reading some Phil Jackson plays right there, or books. That's kind of like what his thing was. He let the players. He wouldn't call timeouts when the other teams would go on runs and the team would be down. He would let them figure it out with the Bulls and the Lakers.
And that was him.
Yep.
And that was him.
Yeah. How about you paying it back? Are you doing any mentorship with people behind you, kind of ushering them along as well?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I have 3 gentlemen now. One's got promoted to lieutenant. One is, and 2 of them now are majors. One is actually the commander of internal affairs. The other one is actually the commander of our narcotics enforcement division. I have another one who is a sergeant running a regional investigations division squad investigating robberies. So I have about actually 4 or 5 that I'm mentoring, but I'm also the one that my phone is on. And just last week there was an incident that happened in one of the lieutenants. And he's like he says I'm his god brother. He sends me a text message. It's 2 a.m. He says, "Hey, big brother, if you're awake, I need to talk." So I got up, go downstairs to be respectful of the sleeping wife and sit down in the office and got him squared away. So yeah, I always tell them, phone's always on, call me.
Yeah, good stuff. Pay that back. Pay it forward as well.
Absolutely.
Full circle. So what's kind of the more challenging parts of your job as a deputy chief?
I would say in this climate now, it's retention of people. With all that's happening now, you have a lot of the senior officers who are saying, is it worth it to stay? And this isn't just our department, but I'm sure nationwide, they're seeing more people leave the profession. And the attrition, us getting people in is not being able to sustain the amount of the attrition. So we're losing people, and that has become a huge challenge for us. And we're losing the experience and the quality of people.
Yeah. But we're losing people. Are we losing them just due to retirements and injuries and that sort of thing? Or are we losing them because, they don't like the way law enforcement is going? Because they don't like change. They like the way things were and things aren't the way they used to be. If that's the case, then sorry, bye. We can't stay in the same place. But the challenge is, getting the people to come in behind you. And do you guys see any solutions for that?
Well, so here's what I think. And if I'm sitting here today, if I'm, in this position, and if I'm a chief of a department one day, we have to be realistic with the public and everybody. We have to tell people who are potential or prospective future law enforcement officers that the police profession is ever evolving. Okay. There was once a time that you can go into an interview and remember someone may ask, why do you want to be a police officer? And the candidate would give the general answer, I want to help people.
Yeah.
And that was good enough. Well, now you're going to have to expound on that. So now the answer is, well, I want to help people. My follow-up question is, how? You have to tell us what it is that you're going to bring to this profession. And the people, the citizens, and everybody, because remember, we may work for county executives or mayors or city managers or whatever. Those are the ones who may sign the paychecks and give the direction. We work for the citizens in the community. So in Prince George's County, talking about a population of almost 1 million people and 500 square miles, I have a lot of bosses. That's what I tell people. I have almost 1 million bosses because they are.
Right.
And you have to remember that. And that's the mindset that we have to get into, is that we work for the citizens in the community. And the people coming in, this new generation, they have to be aware of that. They have to know that this isn't anymore, just looking to lock up the bad guy and write some tickets and do this. No, now you're going to be asked to get involved in seminars and groupthink and assist in having in collaborating to have long and short term solutions for businesses, residents, and everyone. So that's what it has to be. You have to let them know that there's a total package when it comes down to policing now. It's not just guns and badges and nice cars and riding around with the shades on and listening to the radio and that. No, it's a profession of service, and you have to be willing to provide service. And if that doesn't fit with what you're looking for, then you need to look at something else.
Absolutely. And what's one of the more rewarding parts of your job as a deputy chief?
One of the most rewarding parts is actually that, there are people who still look to you for guidance. I have young commanders that are running district stations and running shifts that, they will look to me for guidance. They look to me for direction. I also am instrumental in providing that. Some of the other rewarding things about it is the fact that just the other day I reached out to a citizen that was trying to get some stuff done and couldn't find a way to get it done, and ended up by accident. She got my phone number in the office and got me directly. We were on the phone having a conversation, and in 15 minutes, what she'd been trying to get done for almost 3 weeks was accomplished in 15 minutes. She even wrote a letter to the chief thanking me for taking the time out. And it wasn't that I sought her out or she sought me out. It was by accident that she got my number in the office and called. And I guess just, it was God's grace that I was supposed to speak to her and get her the assistance she needs, because she'd been getting ran around and not getting the appropriate answers. So it's moments like that are most rewarding, to say that, hey, I helped someone get something done that was very important to them.
All right, absolutely. Good to hear. So 23 years on the job, how much longer you got in the tank?
I'll be honest with you. Whether it's here or somewhere else, I still feel good.
Okay,
I'm not the young guy at the age of 26 when I first came on, but I still can go. And what I mean by that is not so much the action part of the street or whatever, but the education piece for the newer generation to come in to do this job effectively and correctly. So nice. I have a lot to offer on that front. I would love to be able to mentor those guys and teach them that.
A lot more in the tank.
Yeah, I have a lot more in the tank.
I wasn't trying to put you out the stud or anything right now, Chief. So.
I hope not.
Yeah, you still got a lot more to go. Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and this is really insightful. I appreciate you telling me everything that you could about your department, about you. the next step for you and your department. Hopefully we can all, because that's a nationwide problem, recruitment right now, and particularly minorities. Hopefully we can bring them in, and being a part of this solution is being part of this show is hopefully is part of that solution. So I thank you.
Yeah. Dale, the pleasure and honor was all mine. Thank you for hosting, and thank you for allowing me to participate. I appreciate
it. Absolutely. But we're not done yet. Like I told you before, we got a little something going on. I got a little rapid fire question and answer session for you. So I call this
Last night I saw a superhero, he was black. He said, "This is for the street. Black Lightning's back."
I call this my Black Lightning round. I'm going to throw some questions at you, and you just throw some answers at me, quick fire style, and hopefully we can get some more insight about you. So here's your first question: the Washington football team or the Baltimore Ravens? Ravens. Okay. All right. I'm sure you've been in a foot pursuit or two in your career, right? What's the longest? What's the longest?
The longest one was it was actually right under a mile, about 9/10 of a mile.
All right. Were you gassed after that?
Oh no, I was actually good because I was younger then.
Oh, okay. Right. I hear you. If you hadn't gone in law enforcement, what do you think you'd be doing?
If I had gone in law enforcement, I probably would have stayed in the military and retired.
Yeah, good choice. Guilty food pleasure.
Ooh, guilty food pleasure. Lasagna.
Ooh, I got you on that one. How long has it been since you last arrested somebody?
2009.
Been a little while. Yeah. So Prince George's County is named after Prince George of Denmark. Have you ever been, or do you want to go to Denmark?
I'd like to visit one day. My wife and I like to travel, so just to say we went.
Yeah. All right. What's your favorite assignment that you've never done that you would like to have done in your career?
My favorite assignment that I've never done but would have liked to have done in my career would have probably been to be in the narcotics enforcement division.
Okay. Yeah, that's a hard life right there. Yeah, I did that for a few years. So, you like music, right? We all like music. Frankie Beverly or Teddy Pendergrass? Frankie. Okay. All right. I was looking on you guys' website for recruitment, and the department's helicopter out there isn't part of that photo with some cadets as well. You ever been up in the department chopper?
No, I have not. But now that I'm the bureau chief, they're trying to get me to go up. So I see that in the real near future here.
So you're not scared to go up in it though, or?
Oh no.
Oh no. That's what you were. Zip for 5. You were in the Corps, so yeah. All right. Bucket list person you'd like to meet one day.
I'm sorry, which one?
Bucket list person. Bucket list person you'd like to meet one day. Still alive.
President Barack Obama.
All right. Never got a chance, huh?
Never got a chance.
Yeah, I would love to meet him as well. Real inspirational figure for me, as far as being the president, being a successful African American male, family man, all that, orator, everything. Yeah, he's inspiration. I agree with you there. All right, Chief, I appreciate you coming on and having some fun with me here at the end. And Frankie Beverly or Teddy Pendergrass? Frankie Beverly. Okay, I got you. Teddy got some.
Yeah, Teddy was for the ladies, man.
Oh, right. Yeah. This is true. Yeah. All right, Chief, I appreciate you. You be safe out there. Wash your hands, mask up, and hopefully we'll get through this COVID and be safe. All right.
Always. Thank you very much again, Dale. Look forward to
soon.
Hopefully meeting again. You too. Buddy.
Absolutely. Bye. All right. All right, y'all. That's it for this episode of the Black and Blue Podcast. I want to thank my guest today, Deputy Chief George Nichols of the Prince George's County, Maryland Police Department, for dropping in and chopping it up with me here today. I really appreciated our conversation, sir, and wish you much success in your future. If you guys out there appreciated this episode, give it a thumbs up and share it with your circles. Also, please like and subscribe to the Black and Blue Podcast on my YouTube channel or your favorite podcast platform. I'll be back right here in 2 weeks with yet another fire interview. Same black time, same black channel. But till then, y'all know what to do. Stay black and blue. I'll holler at you. Peace.
This has been a Maitre D Entertainment presentation.